Hey, insiders, interested in breaking into other international markets? Well, if you are, India is one of the world's fastest growing music markets. In this special edition, we sat down with Mandar Thakur, CEO of Times Music, Southeast Asia's largest media conglomerate. We discussed the growing infrastructure of India's music business, as well as some of the leading artists that are reaching that marketplace, and much, much more. Coming up. Hi, we're coming to you live from Muse Expo in Hollywood at the Roosevelt Hotel. We managed to catch up with Mandar Thakur, who is the COO of Times Music in India. Mandar, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
Pleasure, Rich.
Can you talk about the current state of the music business in India today?
That's a tough question. The current state of music business in India. Well, when you think about India, it's really the music and the film business, which is called Bollywood, because close to 92% of movies are all musicals. So movies and music for us is ingrained into one culture. So it's sort of like a 3-hour-long escape into entertainment, right? So having said that, there's multiple forms of music. So Bollywood music really is the overreaching, as I said, overreaching ethos when we say music. And then there's subgenres of music that count. Now, India is a diverse place, right? I mean, ideally, one corner of the country doesn't even look like the other corner of the country, and they may not speak the same language. And given that, so there's cultures between cultures, so there's a scene between a scene, and then there's another scene. Today, the Indian music industry is probably roughly valued at about 260 or 280 million US, out of which a major portion actually comes out of digital music. Over the last decade and a half, digital music probably meant mobile music, which is ringbacks and things like that. And then now we have, the streaming, the subscription services, the download services all coming in. India also has its own local music streaming sites, one of which my parent company owns. It's called Gaana.com. Translated in English, it's song.com, literally. Now, when it comes to, what I'm trying to get at here is that India is predominantly a local music dominated market. When it comes to international music, just to give you a statistic, I think we're probably at between 5.5% to 6% for international music sales on physical CDs. On mobile music, which is ringback tone and sort of like the lowest common denominator access, it's about 1.5% to 2%. However, the scene changes drastically when you talk about something like an iTunes. I'm just sort of estimating it could probably be in the 22 to 24% range because of the profile of an iPhone customer, little upscale, mobile, probably has a bit more money and hence listens to a lot more than just traditional Indian music. And then there are the streaming services that have varied degrees of it. So I believe if the labels and publishers globally are able to clear music much faster, we will actually have a lot more catalog available, thereby increasing sales and consumption of international music. The second side of it is really the touring side, which is really where I think where the meat falls off the bone, if I may. In terms of genres, there is electronica, which is the current sort of rage over the last 4 years. Every top DJ worth his salt is there pretty much every weekend. We have some of the biggest EDM festivals going on. And on the other hand, it's really the mainstreamish top 40 common global sound that actually works. So now when you juxtapose concerts and touring with that, it forms a very interesting thing. On one hand, there's the big acts that come in and tour. And on the other hand, there are the festivals and the DJs that come in on tour.
It's interesting, in the last interview we did with Ralph Simon, he talked about India being with Akon, being the largest international artist in India, and how he went about and did that by recording, in Hindi, by, getting that into the country. And he did it with, I believe, another artist, an Indian artist, and really made that effort to become a significant artist. And he's from Senegal, I believe.
Yeah.
Right. So it's interesting. And I believe Lady Gaga did the same thing. Was it last year or the year before, where she recorded in India?
Yeah. I'm going to actually, correct Ralph on it. Akon is not the biggest international artist. He is one of the big ones.
One of the big ones?
No doubt, but not the biggest. However, I get asked at panels everywhere, what does it take to break into India? And I go, oh God, it's it's a big country. So let me start with what it takes to break into India, right? And then one thing is that the 1.2 billion people as a market is a myth. Yes, we do have 1.2 billion people, probably a lot more somewhere. But a lot of them are not of an economic stature yet to be worrying about what act they listen to. I think a lot of them are probably, employment is a lot more on their mind than anything else. So I would estimate the market size probably in 150 million consumers that would define a transactional paying customer. The second thing is when it comes to breaking artists in India, I mean, there's obviously for the smaller guys that just pretty much the concert tour route. Because what tends to happen is that with so many festivals coming in, there's very successful bands. Carnival from Australia, there's a Norwegian band, in fact, who's here at Musexpo this year. They've been coming every year. So there's a lot of little bands that actually keep touring back. And they're building up a following, right? At least on the touring circuit. And at some point, I guess, they will release an album. The second thing, I think, for the global superstars is really you have to use a mass consumption mechanism or a medium, and which is Bollywood or cricket. Nobody really cares beyond a certain point how big you are across the world. I think it's what resonates in the market. And if you look at the sheer scale, size, reach, and what Bollywood music means to every single Indian over the last probably more than 100 years. And if someone sort of figures that mechanism out, and I think they've got a chance, because Akon and his management, I think, were smart enough. This was a big Bollywood movie. The track was called Chamak Challo. And one of India's most prolific music composer duo, Vishal Shekhar, actually composed the song. Akon had nothing to do with composing the song. It had more to do with him participating as a performer. And Akon came on, he sang in Hindi. It was a huge one. And we've got several examples like that. Kylie Minogue actually was in a music video of a Bollywood film. She sang with that. And a couple more sort of examples. And I think they were successful in reaching an audience they would traditionally not reach at, right? So that's really one large success factor. So I think it's really got to do with, firstly, whether your sound is right for what works in the market. And that's got nothing to do whether you're American, British, Australian, Estonian, Russian. It's got to do with the sound. And if the sound is right, then you figure out that if I'm known, it wasn't really a great collaboration of some awesome musical work as much as the opportunity that probably worked well with Akon, right? Mm-hmm. It well went with the kind of person he is. The song was really well recorded. He was doing it in Hindi, so it was a novelty factor to it. And there was a large PR story with it. And likewise, when Kylie did this film called Blue, I think maybe about 10 years ago or something, or maybe 8 years back.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting when you talk about breaking into the market, you're speaking about the idea of, looking at the marketplace and utilizing what is best vehicle in terms of that sound to reach the market, both with Akon and Kylie. They used Bollywood movies and they used songs from the films and performed. Did Kylie do it in Hindi?
Kylie, it was a mix, I think.
Mix. Okay.
Yeah, I don't remember, but yeah, it was a mix.
When this happens and they become very popular and big hits, can the artists go there and perform? Is there an interest when they have that, or?
Well, the first thing to know is that Akon and Kylie were already really popular in India.
Okay.
They're the sort of music that really works. So this was more like an icing on the cake. Mm-hmm. It wasn't starting ground zero. So in those two particular cases, I would think that they would have performed anyway, like any other big touring artists. However, I think for the bigger stars, it's about maximization, not breaking in. For the smaller stars, it's about breaking in and then building up some level of maximization. And that happens not with just big sort of pop rock star type acts. It also happens on a different level of musicianship with other forms of music that may not be as popular. It could be jazz, it could be fusion, a whole host of things. We've got a very diverse culture in India. So you're not sort of just limited to that.
To one thing.
Yes.
Exactly. How many films are made a year in India?
I know for a fact that that's a lot more than what even Hollywood makes in the years.
Right.
Probably 700 to 1,000 maybe a year. Yeah, but that's my best estimate based on some earlier figures. It could be up or down now. Yeah.
Wow.
So we have the Bollywood industry, which is the sort of national level Hindi film and music industry, and then there are the regional music industries, which is at different language, and those guys make a lot as well. So it's it's a massive scene for that.
For more target.
Yeah. And what sort of works? I think the advantage that India has, that India actually skips generations, right? So we never really had the LD or the VCD. From a VHS, we went straight into a DVD. We never really had the pager. We jumped straight into a cell phone. So by the time the cell phones got in, we jumped straight into a smartphone. What that means is that because things are just starting from ground zero up, you sort of adapt to the newest available. You're sort of not rising with the tide. And that works, I think, pretty much well for a lot of music as well. That, like electronica, I mean, I was stunned. And we are, as Times Music, one of the largest distributors of electronica and EDM. We do the Paul Van Dyke albums, Cosmic Gate, a whole host of them. And I was actually shocked to see this kind of movement, in a way, to a point that we have some of the biggest electronica festivals in the world in a place called Goa in India.
Mandar, we spoke yesterday on the panel about the very interesting concept that you brought up, which is the idea of, the DIY, the do-it-yourself ethos. That especially exists today in the marketplace. And you had a very interesting take on it, which I would like to ask you to sort of elaborate on with regards to a situation that you had in Asia on a panel. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, well, I think, first, the definition of DIY in today's current time is do it yourself. But when it came to India and Asia, I think it was already doing it yourself. Right, and I remember this panel where it actually wasn't me, but I think it was Rob who was managing Linkin Park, and one of the guys from Rock Records in Taiwan, and they had this whole debate about about the new world and the new economy and the everything kind of merging together, where the Taiwanese fellow was just saying that, look, all these different stakeholders that sort of are involved in a song and sort of eating out of it, Rock Records is a brilliant example of integration themselves. I mean, they've been doing DIY, and so have we for years now, simply because we didn't have a structured industry. Also simply because every market in Asia, every market in India is radically different from each other. These are continents literally amassed into one or two large continents, right? So nothing is the same. So everyone creates their own. There is no one structure that is right. And I think that's a big myth. It's just that I think in the US, it's something that, the business is so large, it's very global, and there's a structure that works. But in certain countries, it just doesn't work. So you have to adaptize, you have to localize a little bit. And Rob's comment was, which is justifiably so, about the blurring lines between an agent and a manager. And, California law just basically provides the fact that you can't be both.
Right, it's very distinct here.
Yeah, but if you look at David Geffen, which is the biggest success in the whole world in show business, he was just doing it, and he's built an empire. He's impacted global culture. So my logic is the same, that you have to do what works. And sometimes management means also finding employment for the artist. Sometimes PR means that as a label, if you really know the artist really, really well, and you have someone, a physical body, a brain who specializes, a human being, into PR, and that is far better than just hiring some PR agency, why wouldn't you do that, right? If you have a talented sort of agent in your setup, you would book. Where is the conflict of interest? I think, in my mind, the conflict of interest is only in the mind of the person having the conflict. At the end of the day, we're all working for the artist. We make money from the artist. And what can't be forgotten is, in the new economy, the output out of a music sale, the output out of merch, the output out of a whole lot of things is coming down. It's shrinking. And fundamentally, it can't support the older kind of ecosystem. So what you have to do now is find what areas you specialize in and then offer the best sort of services. And today, some of the bigger labels like a Warner Music Group, they're all doing 360-degree deals. So it's sort of, so on one hand, what Asia and India need to do is obviously adapt to an equal sort of global structure so it's easy to administer. and make sure that the pennies that drop are collected.
Mm-hmm.
And at the same time, the industry overall, I think, globally, also needs to come into a DIY or a 360 structure. Now, it may not all be the 360. It could be 180, it could be 270, it could be 280. But you have to, again, specialize. Sometimes you're a label and a publisher. Sometimes you're a label and management and not publishing. Sometimes you're just a publisher. And publishing roles are changing across the world as well. I mean, look at BMG, look at Copart here.
Very, very much so. We've been talking about that here, how they, really expanded, grown in terms of just what they offer, services that they offer. What do you see on the horizon for India's music business? Do you see stronger infrastructure in the touring world? Do you see more independent artists developing outside of Bollywood? What's just from your perspective being there, what do you see for the future?
Fundamentally, I see three things. I look at India as a very large digital consumption market. That is the real kickoff. Second, I think I see a lot of Indian talent as writers developing because we've been doing it for many years. And English is almost like a second language. And that is a big, big advantage over something like a China in terms of cultural, in terms of understanding, in terms of writing. So I see that really having a large sort of impact. And a subset to that point is also the fact that we have so many forms of music. A lot of them are being exploited globally today. I was chatting with DA from Spotify and we were talking and he just popped out the name of a great sort of fusion artist called Arif Lohar, who does some work with us and some other labels. And I think it's sort of getting cross-pollinated. So I definitely sort of see that. Third, I think is a market more than anything else. I see the touring business developing really, really well. Really well. No question about it.
So the future of India's music industry looks rather promising from one of the leading voices in the region. Insiders, question of the day. What were the most educational aspects of Mandar's discussion with us? Was it his views on the current state of the music industry in India today? Or was it Mandar's ideas on DIY? Or was it his thoughts on the future of India's thriving music industry? Or perhaps it was something else that connected with you. If you have any ideas or experiences that you'd like to share with us regarding this video, we'd love to hear from you and connect in the comments below. Thanks so much for watching this video. Make sure to subscribe to MUBUTV for more information on how to educate, empower, and engage your music career. You can also check out a summary of this episode and everything we talked about in the YouTube description as well. And if you enjoyed this video, we'd really love it if you hit the like button and let us know what other kinds of videos and types of content you want to see on our channel. Hit us up in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.